Hi everyone, my name is Herkip, and today I'll be doing something a bit different from my usual content, which is to play modded. This is something that I've actually only done twice here on my channel, where I took on the Aether mod, as well as the Scariest Horror mod pack, where the latter one was taken down, as literally no one, including myself, liked it. However, this mod pack I've decided to take on was rather different from the other ones I've tried, as this particular one focuses on one specific thing. In normal Minecraft, I think we can all agree that zombies are essentially the Minecraft equivalent of the little brother that one of your friends had to bring along to your hangouts because they wanted to avoid a spanking of biblical proportions from their mum. They're slow, stupid, and can only deal melee damage, meaning that you can easily avoid all damage by simply pillaring up on 2 blocks. But this isn't the case in the mod pack we're taking on in this video. The zombies in this mod pack have been living off of an exclusive diet of breakfast cereals, laced with steroids and pheromones of the hanky-panky variety. And as an addition to this mod pack comes with a 100-day challenge mode, meaning that I didn't have to rely on my own ingenuity or creativity to know what to do with it, which was very epic. But since I thought that I didn't have enough problems in my debatably less than meaningful life, I decided to attempt this in hardcore. With that monstrous intro out of the way, let's have a look at what I decided to do with roughly 20 hours of my life. I started off with going for the meta way of playing the game like all the professionals do, which was to go to the world creation screen, set it to hardcore, gave it a super creative and swaggy name, and created the world. Then began the adventure of staring at the loading screen for 22 seconds, which I likely spent scrolling on my phone, as I am unfortunately a zoomer. And after having spent said previously mentioned eternity, I spawned in, which marked the end of our professional playstyle. So, I started the built-in 100-day challenge and went off to grab our first pieces of wood. This is when I ran into our first obstacle, as it appeared that I would likely spend the majority of these 100 days getting our first pieces of wood. I have absolutely no idea who decided to make wood this annoying to get, but I do know that they are absolutely evil. But a few decades later, I finally managed to get my hands on a whopping 4 pieces of wood, which I used to do the normal thing you do in a world. So I crafted myself a pickaxe, grabbed some stone, made a better pickaxe, grabbed some more stone, and set off. Since this mod pack buffs zombies to the point where they're stupidly unfair, I thought it would probably be a good idea to get my hands on a bed as quickly as possible. This meant that I got to enjoy the fact that killing animals in this mod pack causes them to explode and make their limbs fly all over the place. Needless to say, I was a very big fan of this, and the good news didn't stop there. I had to grab some more wood, as the tree we spent a few millennia cutting down only gave us 4 pieces. But unlike our incredibly infuriating and cataclysmically sadistic first encounter we had with the tree, this one was really quick to cut down, and the trees we were chopping down were almost as large as the number an average American can find at the bottom of their medical bill, meaning that they yielded an absolutely stupid amount of logs. So with almost half of an inventory worth of logs, our journey continued. I spotted a ruined portal that had quite a bit of lava, but nothing of interest in its chest. But whilst I was gathering food in a way that would upset the average adult with facial piercings, I was jump scared by a less than pleasant sound to hear. However, after a severely needed change of undergarments, we continued on our journey as if nothing happened, and instantly after having done that, I ran into a crack that was almost as large as mine, which had a few pieces of exposed iron. This was most definitely needed, as shields were most likely going to be rather important. But just after having travelled an additional couple hundred blocks, I spotted a village, which was exactly what we needed, though I rather quickly noticed that the village was partly in a biome with rather freaky trees. So I was incredibly lucky to be into freaky things, even though that was the main reason why my last, debatably, romantic relationship ended. But it was most definitely worth it. Just kidding. I've never had a partner. But as I was having a rather sinister look around the village, I stumbled upon a thorny bush which I decided to punch. And this item was apparently called Bramble, which I found rather amusing, as that sounded like something you'd see on that meme with Gordon Ramsay. Villages in this mod pack are a bit different from vanilla, as they actually add an occupation for villagers which makes them guards who act basically the same as iron golems. This meant that we had to take on one of the biggest challenges in the history of challenges in Minecraft, as we had to be incredibly sneaky whilst committing our crimes against humanity. Anyways, there were reasons as to why finding a village was so crucial for this challenge. The first one was to get arrows and a bow from a Fletcher, as those would be really annoying to get without finding a village. The second reason was because we needed a cleric to get ender pearls. Now, some of you who haven't seen my other content might be wondering why I'm going for villager trading instead of piglin bartering or simply killing endermen in a warped forest. And one of the reasons for this is that this is the way I always do it, and changes scare me. The other reason is because both of the previously mentioned ways of acquiring ender pearls are basically completely out of the question. As per usual, this isn't the first time I tried beating this challenge, as I managed to die in really stupid ways in the earlier attempts. But one thing I learned during an earlier run was that the Nether spawns an absolutely stupid amount of zombies, making it really hard to do anything at all. This meant that we couldn't really do the piglin or endermen strategy, as I'd end up getting absolutely demolished by a horde of zombies. So when I had gathered everything that I'd need for the Nether, I made my way back to the ruined portal we had found earlier and used the lava to make an actual portal. And once I went through, I found myself right on top of a Nether fortress. I honestly don't remember if that has ever happened to me on the first try of a world before, but I was most definitely not complaining. This meant that we didn't have to take the risk of exploring to find one, whilst also getting chased down by a bunch of perverts. And after fending off multiple varieties of people you can find in East London, I made it out of the treasure part of the fortress and located the 2 blaze spawners. However, both of them were completely exposed, which was certainly a less than optimal situation, but as I was utilizing the incredibly heroic and courageous tactic of boxing myself in and peeking with my bow, the blaze spawner broke, which is one of the many mods put in this mod pack for the sole reason of ruining my life. Though since I am rather lazy and insufficiently skilled, I decided to simply take the blaze rods we actually managed to get and gaslight myself into thinking that it was plenty enough. After a less than comfortable journey back, we successfully made it to the overworld with our blaze rods, so I wasted no time at all and went on to turning all of my wood logs from earlier into sticks to hopefully get enough emeralds to get us our pearls. And with that, we were ready to take on the dragon. But now some of you might be wondering why I'm trying to beat the Ender Dragon before even building a starter base. And the answer to that is the exact same as why I go for villagers for pearls, as this is how I usually do things and I don't like change. However, there was actually a bit of a plan behind this choice for once, as the most overpowered piece of equipment is located in the outer islands of the end. That of course being wings, as that would mean that if I were to get surrounded, I'd be able to escape quickly. But you also get enchanted diamond armor, as well as tools that are sometimes even maxed. So taking these risks now would hopefully mean that we get our hands on extremely overpowered stuff in the early game, which would be absolutely huge. With that thought in mind, I made my way to the stronghold and began the adventure of finding the portal, which took about half an hour to find. It was then just a matter of jumping through the portal and starting the dragon fight. Luckily, zombies don't actually spawn in the end. I have absolutely no idea why that is, but I'm most definitely not complaining. This fight resulted in an incredibly anticlimactic death, as the dragon had the exact same animation as the other mobs. Nonetheless, I made my way through the gateway that generated and found myself right next to an end city. However, it didn't have a ship, meaning that we had to continue looking. The end raiding session was actually weirdly calm and relaxing, as zombies don't spawn on the outer islands either, and during that session, I discovered that the loot tables in the chests of end cities included items from mods as well, which was very epic, as I had actually had a bit of a cheeky little look at my crafting recipes. But I was significantly too cheap to actually spend resources to craft any, so this meant that I could still test them out. Once I had seized enough possessions to slightly satiate my immense greed, I got back to where we initially spawned with a ton of enchanted diamond stuff, along with a pair of wings. So I made my way back to the village we had financially exploited earlier and grabbed some of the freaky wood as I thought it looked cool. But at this point, we had a bunch of equipment, but we still didn't have a base of operations, which was rather suboptimal, so I went off in hopes of finding a good place to settle down. I eventually decided to set up shop right next to our Nether portal. Now you may wonder why I decided to do it right next to our Nether portal, and what I was going to use it for. So I decided to go for a wall made up of cobblestone, stone bricks, and the freaky wood we grabbed earlier for a kind of weird roof, and the intention of this decision was to keep a consistent style between the wall and the house I was intending to build. But after having spent a bit shy of 1 hour on this wall, I realized that those absolute pricks could break blocks, meaning that they could mine their way through my wall. This meant that my wall was completely useless, so I decided to switch strategy. I figured that if they can break blocks, it wouldn't really matter what kind of house I would build, as that wouldn't hold them back from just mining through it. However, given that they could mine it, they would need to be close enough to the house to do so. So I decided to open my third eye along with my second brain cell and decided to build the base significantly above ground level so that they couldn't reach me. I went for an octagonal shape, just like we had for the absolutely useless wall that I wasted way too much time on. And when the night came and I had slept through it, the zombies on the courtyard were completely stuck on the ground, meaning that my absolutely genius master plan had worked. I decided to go for a design without walls, as I thought it would be nice to see the ground where potential hoodlums may hang around and wait for my cheeks to descend upon them. After having worked on the base a tiny bit, I stayed up for a bit during nighttime, which made for a rather interesting sight. I then went on to spend some time doing small things, like installing a way to retract the water elevator that we were using, as zombies would occasionally use it to get up in the base. The rest of that time was spent recreating my real-life routine of doing absolutely nothing productive in the slightest. But after a while, I decided to put in yet another floor for our base where the floor would be made out of glass, so that I could see what festivities were taking place directly below us. I then decided to explore for a bit in hopes of finding some coal, as we had gone through it at the pace as that of our liquid meaning to live. So we went looking for coal, but found a mob spawner that had 5 pieces of gunpowder, meaning that we could finally use our wings. As some of you might have noticed, barely any mobs spawn apart from zombies, meaning that getting any drops from the other mobs is basically impossible. I then remembered that even though we're under surveillance for potential crimes against humanity in the village we found earlier, I could still partake in the light-hearted and playful act of financial exploitation. So I set my sight on getting 2 librarians to get both mending as well as unbreaking. The main reason why I decided to go for mending was because I wanted it. However, the reason I decided to also get unbreaking was because I wanted that as well. But as I was re-rolling our villages, I realized that the creator of this mod pack is American, as we apparently had unrestricted access to guns, which made me rather excited. So, after I had managed to get my hands on both a mending and unbreaking book, I excitedly scuttled my way home, knowing that I would soon have a fully automatic bringer of freedom and cholesterol. I then spent a few seconds feeling like a child playing with a cool stick they found in the forest, but that bliss didn't last very long, as I realized that the ammunition for the gun I just made requires 2 whole pieces of gunpowder, and as I mentioned earlier, we don't have any of it, nor any good options to acquire it. So I stayed up at night in desperate hopes of getting a creeper to spawn, but alas, that didn't happen. However, I was determined to keep trying to get my hands on this godforsaken ammunition, so I decided to build a mob farm, as I hoped that the zombies would cycle quicker and increase my odds of getting creepers, or any other mob than zombies, to spawn. And whilst writing this script, I have absolutely no idea how that made any sense whatsoever, as I could have just built the farm with a ceiling of trapdoors to only have creepers and spiders to spawn, but that was my thought nonetheless. When it was done, I went on to spend a few minutes AFK to see if it was working, and rather surprisingly, we had actually managed to get a good few skeletons to spawn, which meant that it actually was for some miraculous reason producing more than just zombies. So I spent a bit longer AFK and returned to a whopping 1 piece of gunpowder. This then went on for several sessions AFK that yielded absolutely nothing. So due to my previously mentioned flawed line of reasoning, we ended up with a pitiful amount of gunpowder instead of potentially never having to worry about it again. But once I went AFK once more, I noticed something rather disturbing, which was that the zombies could now place blocks. I then realized that the only thing making our base safe is the fact that it's suspended in the air, which didn't do anything anymore. So I made my way back to our base, dealt with an intruder, packed my things and left. The zombies were now becoming a serious threat, as there aren't many things you can do to protect yourself. But I did manage to conjure up yet another plan. However, before finding our new place to set up shop, I decided to do a bit of treasure hunting. Anyways, my new plan of action was the exact same thing as our last place. But with a slight twist, the behavior of the zombies in this mod pack was heavily altered, meaning that they wouldn't walk into lava by themselves, as they would stop right before it. So the new plan was to build a base at the sky limit and cover the roof in a set of dispensers that, when activated, would cover the entire base in lava, making it impossible for any zombies to make their way in. I also assumed that they wouldn't be able to shoot me through the lava, but I never actually looked it up, as my level of intellect leaves a lot to be desired. Once we had made some progress on our new base of operations, I used the pitiful amount of gunpowder we had to craft some ammo for our gun, but the ammo cost 2 pieces of gunpowder, meaning that we had 1 left, so I made the executive decision to craft a minigun and use the last piece of gunpowder on ammo for that as well. I then got onto an incredibly productive activity of testing out our new materialized freedom. That is very much correct. I went on to use the ammo that we had slaved for over the vast majority of this video on animals, and after having lived the commercially successful Twinkie-fueled lifestyle, I decided to make a crop farm, as we actually hadn't had a stable source of food. But in this process, I spotted what I believed to be the most dedicated and focused zombie to have ever existed, so I gave him a respectful spanking and continued progress. Our next mission that the dedicated and respectfully spanked zombie had kindly reminded me of was to install the lava wall we discussed earlier. The dimensions of the base and all of its floors were intentionally planned to make sure that the lava will connect even at the floor directly below the base. So all we had to do from here was to figure out the placement of all the dispensers. This was actually easier than I had thought. However, in order to install this feature, we needed quite a few dispensers, which required 1 bow for each of them. So I once again resorted to financial exploitation to get my hands on the bows we needed. I then went on to kill iron golems, mining and treasure hunting to get enough iron for the buckets of lava for all the dispensers. During this journey, I found something incredibly horrifying and absolutely evil. Apparently, zombies in this mod pack can spawn with invisibility. The zombie I found was luckily wearing leather armor, but even with that absolutely horrendous discovery, we made it back to the base and started the most difficult part of the installation. That, of course, being the redstone to get it to actually work. Some of you might wonder why this is the most difficult part, thinking that the redstone in this should be very straightforward. And the reason for this is that I'm not very well versed in the activity of thinking, but against all odds, I did manage to get it to work eventually. However, at this point, I had made it well past day 90 and had basically done most of the things that I wanted to do. I had a base that was pretty much impossible for zombies to get into. I had guns and ammo, a wide selection of modded weapons, and so on. So I mainly used the last few days continuing work on the farm that we completely abandoned, and a farm for sugarcane, both of which I knew damn well that I would most definitely not use. But as we approached day 100, I got the idea to try to survive our last night on foot using our guns. So I tried getting some good enchants on our guns to improve my odds of not receiving a clapping of calamitous proportions, but failed miserably. And with that, the final night commenced. So there we have it. I survived for 100 days in a zombie invasion. I hope you enjoyed the ride as much as I did. Please leave a like and subscribe if you did, and let me know if there are any other 100-day challenges you would like to see me take on. But anyways, I'll see you in the next one.